guys. So, much like my my top 10 favorite Batman villains, kind of a redux of that top 10 list, I decided to do a redux of sorts for my Spider-Man list, for my top 10 favorite Spider-Man villains. Mostly because my opinions on the Spider-Man villains, much like with the Batman villains, has changed, and I've added and subtracted some villains here and there. Also, if the mic sounds a little different, it's because I've got the fan running, so hopefully it doesn't mess up the audio too much, because, yeah, I realized, yeah, this might take a while, because I might have to do some major explaining, and I don't want to be fucking hot. Anyway, so, yeah, I'm just going to jump right into this, and also, as always, this is just my personal favorite, these are just my favorite, this is my personal list. This is not saying these are the top 10 Spider-Man villains, and you should worship them, brah! No, I'm not saying that at all. These are just how I enjoy these villains, these are how I enjoy these villains and how I rank them. And this was actually really fucking tough. But yeah, if you think a villain should be higher or lower on the list, that's totally fine. No ill will against you. I'm always excited to see your top 10 lists as always. So, yeah. Let's jump right into it with number 10, as you can see right here, the Rhino. The Rhino was a character that I've always thought was just kind of a cool villain, because Spider-Man has to fight this super strong opponent, and, he's this big dumb brute. But really, he's kind of a softie when you think about it. I mean, yeah, he's changed over the years, but really, his intentions as being the Rhino were really good. Initially, the Rhino was a Russian immigrant who, he could get money for himself and get across get to the U.S. However, because he was written at a time when, Russia and America weren't exactly buddy-buddy, he was treated with a lot of racism and, a lot of hatred, and he wanted to get money to get the rest of his family over to America, but, because he was Russian, no one really hired him. So he ended up working for some for an experimental group and got this weird rhino costume affixed to his skin, and he got, a little more stupider at times. So yeah, the Rhino is a very interesting villain, because again, he follows the classic trend of most Spider-Man villains, is that they're these two-bit guys who are, down on their luck, and, they gain this power, but they use it irresponsibly, unlike Peter Parker, who I guess you could argue is kind of doing that now in all new, all different Marvel, but we're not here to argue about that. Anyway, but yeah, the Rhino is always a fun character to see, just see him and Spider-Man brawl, or him fight other characters. Recently, he went, during the Ends of the Earth story arc, he went toe-to-toe with Thor. He's gone head-to-head with the Hulk and Captain America. He's a major powerhouse, and it's always fun to see him show up in any form of, in any shape or capacity. He's always a cool character to see, and it's always fun to see this character be played out, really. The Rhino is, again, there's some really cool stories. I mean, if you guys remember the Gauntlet story arc, where Rhino had gotten out of the suit, he had found peace. He had gained his intelligence back. He had actually, found a woman, found a wife, and he was writing a book. He was becoming famous. And then the new Rhino showed up, and with Spider-Man, it kind of got all ruined. Also, I can't remember the name of this story, but there's a Marvel Knight story that Garth Ennis wrote about the Rhino, and it's very heartbreaking and touching. Yeah, just get your head around that. Garth Ennis wrote a Spider-Man story where the Rhino is the victim. He wrote this... Garth Ennis, the guy who made Preacher and Punisher Max, made a Rhino story that will make you cry. I can't remember the name of it, but it's in the Marvel Knights line. Anyway. But yeah, it's a very tragic... I can't remember the name of it. It's been so long since I've read it. But yeah, all I remember is that it broke my heart. Anyway. And it was done by Garth Ennis, who knew? Anyway, so there you go, guys. Number 10, the Rhino. Okay, at number 9 is Venom. Wait, don't go! I got an explanation of why Venom is only at number 9. Alright, look. Venom is an interesting character. And, yeah, he came out in a time period when, it was all cool. Marvel's trying to be all cool and extreme and dark. Trying to be like an Image comic like it's trying to be now. Anywho, the thing with Venom is that, yeah, he showed up, during the McFarlane-Michelini storylines, he showed up and was terrifying, he didn't officially appear until number 300, but he was constantly, taunting and teasing Peter from behind the scenes while he was dealing with the villain Jackpot. Or was it Chance? I can't remember the name of the villain, but whatever. In here, Venom has since grown. Eddie Brock has since grown. Both Venom and Eddie have since grown from that time period. Yeah, they were initially a scary character. They were this, Todd McFarlane created this very scary, very haunting type character. This anti-Spider-Man made from the suit that, and this alien costume Peter brought back to him from Secret Wars. And in here, in this story, in that storyline, he did a lot of terrifying things. He scared the shit out of poor Mary Jane and did a few other horrible things because he knew who Peter was. He literally became a poison to him, hence Venom. Anyway, but the thing is that why Venom? You're probably wondering, well, if that's the case, why is Venom so low on the list? Well, here's the thing. I like Venom, but yeah, after the 90s really overplayed him, didn't they? You couldn't go anywhere without seeing Venom, one way or another, being shoehorned into every comic because it was Marvel 90s, and he got turned into an anti-hero. He went from Marvel villain to Marvel anti-hero. However, I will say that Venom's mainstay, the Venom symbiote, as well as Eddie Brock's mainstay as the characters, as both characters respectively, have really, shown. I mean, hell, you can't tell me that Flash Thompson's Venom is kind of awesome. That's still one of the coolest things that, the Rick Remender Venom run was actually pretty badass. And, Flash Thompson Venom himself is kind of awesome. Eddie himself has gone through several changes, from anti-Venom to Toxin to... Does he still have the Toxin symbiote? I can't remember. But yeah, the thing is that why Venom is so low on the list is because he didn't stay a Venom villain, Spider-Man villain for very long. But his initial appearance, Venom's initial appearance, really stood out. It really stood out for Spider-Man characters, and he became not just a notable Spider-Man character, but a notable Marvel character during his stay, and that's why he got a little higher on the list. But yeah, Eddie Brock himself is a really interesting character. This down-on-his-luck asshole who since, he's kind of become like a superpowered Punisher, and, he's changed his ways from going from an asshole to a friend, to, a good person in a way. But all in all, Venom didn't really stay a villain, so had he stayed a villain, I think I would have put him higher on the list. But yeah, he's a little higher on the list because, well, Venom is a very notable character. I mean, when you think Spider-Man characters, who comes to your mind? It's usually Venom at the front, isn't it? Anyway, so there you go. It's not that I hate Venom, it's just that, he didn't stay a villain that long, but, his mainstay in the Marvel Universe really left an impression. Anyway, so there you go, guys. At number 9, Venom. And at number 8... Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. Yep, good old Adrian Toomes. Now, the thing with the Vulture is that, he was one of Spider-Man's first villains, and I think he's a really cool villain because he was this old man who could actually take it to Peter Parker, this young and super strong character, this super strong superhero, and he could beat the shit out of him because he had this flight suit on him. Also, just saying, I really dig the black suit. I really dig the black and red suit. I'm just saying that I really I really have an affinity for that costume in general. But no, the Vulture is a character who kind of, he's always been a character who's, a lot of naysayers have said, no, he's too old, he's this, this grumpy old man in a bird suit. And I think that was kind of the point, really, was that Vulture is this character who could show, even though, you could be like 70 years old and you can still be terrifying. The thing with Vulture is that he's gone from supervillain to kind of like almost... When he came back in the comics, like during Big Time, he almost became like this Penguin-type character. He almost became a character like the Penguin, really. But yeah, that was the thing with the Vulture, was that he was, he could be this aerial menace. And there's actually a really good story in Spectacular Spider-Man way back in the 80s, this 3-part story where Adrian discovers that the suit that he wears is giving him cancer, and he doesn't really have much long to live. And one of the things he wants to reconcile for is go to May Parker and, beg for her forgiveness, or at least say he's sorry to her for accidentally killing his, her love interest at the time. There was a man, I can't remember, there was another man that Aunt May was falling in love with, and Vulture accidentally killed him via a heart attack. And it turned out that Adrian was kind of a friend as well, and that wasn't how he wanted things to go. He didn't mean for that man to die, and he wanted to beg Aunt May for forgiveness, but the final thing he really wanted to do was kill Spider-Man. And I thought that was a really cool story. And in there, we really followed Adrian, who's just like, look, I'm afraid to die. I'm an old man, and now I've got fucking cancer, which I can't remember if they explained that away, how they managed to cure his cancer from it, but yeah. Anyway. But no, Vulture's always been just a fun character. Just seeing him show up is always entertaining for me. But yeah, there you go, guys. At number 8, the Vulture. At number 7, Cletus Cassidy, Carnage. Now you're probably wondering, well, why the fuck is Carnage higher than Venom? I'll tell you why. Because unlike Venom, who went on to become an anti-hero, Carnage stayed a villain, and I won't deny that he got overplayed a lot in the 90s. Hell, there was a 14-part crossover event with him as the mainstay in every fucking Spider-Man title. And yeah, I won't deny that event got a little out of hand, but still, if you write Carnage right, if you write the character of Carnage right, he can be pretty fucking terrifying. This is a guy who has a perfect connection with his symbiote, even more so than any of the other symbiotes, even more than when Peter had the symbiote, or when Venom had, Venom in his symbiote, Eddie in his symbiote, who had a we, Cletus had a perfect connection, always saying I and whatnot. So, and the thing is that, Cletus Cassidy himself is pretty terrifying. Here's this guy who was a serial killer, and now he has a alien entity that can morph into anything it pleases, just via his mental command. He had such a good connection with it, is that the symbiote is part of his bloodstream now. It's this perfect symbiote. It's literally a symbiotic relationship. It's terrifying. With Carnage, he lives up to his name. He literally lives up to that name of Carnage. And yeah, he's left quite the body count in his wake. Carnage has gone from this small-time killer to, holding all of, say what you want about Maximum Carnage, but you can't deny the motherfucker held Manhattan hostage and nearly drove everyone insane, as he did. He almost pushed Peter over the edge himself, and let's not forget that this dude can literally take some serious hits. He also went on a cross-country killing spree for a while. Every time he shows up, it's always to do one thing, to kill people. And that's what I think at the core of what makes Cletus Cassidy so scary as a villain to me. Because it's kind of like, if you guys have ever seen the horror movie The Strangers, in that film, the only reason these masked people are breaking into this couple's home and trying to hurt them, because they're home. That's really it. There's no real big plan. And that's the biggest thing about, that's to me what makes Carnage as a villain so scary when he's done right, is that he doesn't need a plan. He doesn't want to take over the world. He doesn't want to, just kill Spider-Man, even though he'd love to. He doesn't want to just, do this or just do that. He just wants to kill people. There's no rhyme or reason. I mean, yeah, he tried to do the whole big supervillain thing for a while, but then he realized, oh yeah, that's fucking dumb. I want to get back to the basics. So that was kind of his big deal, was that he wanted to be this big, overlying villain that just doesn't want, he doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about world conquest. He doesn't care about any of that. He just wants to see how many people he can kill before someone kills him. And he thinks, the more people I kill, the less chance they have of killing me. And that's the thing about Carnage, is that, that's what sets, I think, to me personally, that's what I think sets him apart from a lot of Spider-Man's other villains, is that, yeah, they all have plans. He don't. anyway, I'm repeating. I'm pretty much repeating myself. But yeah, that to me has stood out of why Carnage gets a little higher on the list. But yeah, that overexposure. Yeah, I can't deny that there was some major overexposure, and now he's coming back, and now he's back. But not as big as he was back in the '90s, but still. So yeah, that's kind of all I really had to say about good old Cassidy. And at number 6, Curt Connors, the Lizard. Now, yeah, Lizard to me, here's the thing. Lizard to me is always an entertaining villain, because whenever he shows up, it's always one thing. I want to kill Spider-Man or make people into reptiles. It's one of those two. That's usually his whole plan. That is really the crux of it all. But yeah, on a side note, I really dig, anthropomorphic reptile characters. So if one of your characters turns into a lizard man, yeah, I'm probably going to be on board with I'm going to be on board with whatever happens next. But no, much like with the Hulk, the Lizard is very much like a Bruce Banner and Hulk thing. Except the Hulk can be, while the Hulk can be dangerous, he can still be a good soul. Lizard, on the other hand, no way. There is nothing redeeming about Connor's alter ego, whereas Banner has the more redeeming alter ego. Connors, on the other hand, doesn't really have the same level, if you know what I mean. He doesn't really have that same persona. The Lizard can range from to a mindless animal to a super intelligent villain. And yeah, there's only two things on his mind: kill Spider-Man, make people lizards. That's really the whole idea. But the thing about the Lizard is that it brings in this whole new element for Peter, because here's a guy who was a friend to him. Here was a guy who was this close friend to Peter Parker, and it hurts him every time he has to go fight. He has to go fight the Lizard, because he's fighting a friend and he has to take it easy on him. He has to restrain himself from pummeling this poor guy, because it's difficult. It's really a challenge for him to battle, the Lizard, because it's a friend in there, even though, despite the Lizard doesn't really have the same, qualms about that. He doesn't have the same, oh, Spider-Man, you're really my friend. Nah, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm the Lizard and I'm a dick. That's kind of the whole point. That's really it. But no, the Lizard, another really early Spider-Man villain, and one of the most dangerous and one of the longest, probably one of the most infamous as well. Lizard is this, of course, it makes sense for, a reptile-type villain to be the villain of Spider-Man, because lizards eat spiders. But then again, the table can turn sometimes in the animal kingdom. And trust me, in the Marvel universe, it's clearly changed over and over again. But that doesn't stop Curt Connors and Curt Connors' alter ego from getting the best of him and Peter. So there you go, guys. That is the first half of my top 10 favorite Spider-Man villains. What do you guys think? Just comment below, let me know. And once again, I want to stress that this is just my top 10 favorite. I'm not saying this is the definitive top 10. I am in no way saying that at all. If you think a villain should be higher or lower on the list, that's totally fine. No ill will against you. This is just how I personally see these villains and how I personally enjoy them. And as always, I'm always excited to see what you guys come up with in terms of villains. Well, where you rank the Spider-Man villains is what I mean. But yeah, this was also, like I said earlier, this was also a pretty difficult list because, well, there's a lot of cool Spider-Man villains. This was a really difficult list to do, and some villains are kind of off the list to make room for some that I really enjoy. But not to say I don't, just because they're not on the top 10 list, I don't enjoy seeing those villains. Again, this list was really fucking hard, so yeah, there were some I had to cut, but that doesn't discredit the villains that didn't make it on this list. But anyway, once again, if you think a villain should have been higher or lower on the list, or not at all, it's totally fine. No ill will against you. But yeah, this is just my first half, and you can probably gauge who the top 5 are at this point. You can probably gauge who the top 5 at this point are. But yeah, you'll just have to wait to see who the top 5 are. to see if you were right or not. But yeah, once again, comment below. Let me know what are your top 10 Spider-Man villains, and stay tuned for the top 5.